Welcome to Crossdressing Stories. Here, we share personal stories, celebrate self-expression. If you're on your own journey or simply curious, you've found your community. Subscribe and join the conversation.
Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it. I was in my natural habitat, my dorm room, lit only by the glow of 3 monitors. The air thick with the scent of lukewarm coffee and the low hum of a PC running on overdrive. I was deep into a raid, my fingers a blur on the keyboard, my focus narrowed to a single point on the screen. Then, the door flew open, banging against the wall with a sound that made me jump in my seat. Kai, my man the hermit, the legend, turn off that digital dungeon for a second. I have news that will change your life, Nolan boomed, his voice a full 2 octaves too loud for the confined space. I didn't turn around. I'm busy. Nolan, the fate of Azeroth 2.0 hangs in the balance. The fate of Azeroth 2.0 can wait. This is real life. Well, almost real life. He strode over and unceremoniously dropped a heavy headset and a sleek, silver box onto the one clear corner of my desk. Behold, the Neurosoft Immersion Sync VR kit, the next generation. My internship finally paid off. I sighed, pausing the game and swiveling in my chair. Nolan was my polar opposite, where I was quiet and content to live online. He was a creature of the physical world, outgoing, athletic, and somehow effortlessly charming. He was studying software engineering with a focus on neural interfaces, which was how he'd landed a coveted internship at Neurosoft, the biggest name in VR. What is it, I asked? Poking the headset, it was lighter than any model I'd ever seen, with no bulky visor, just a slim metallic circlet. It's not what is it, it's what does it do, he corrected, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. This, my friend, is the key to reality swap. It's a closed beta for a new social sim, full immersion sync. We're talking 100% sensory feedback, touch, taste, smell, the works. It maps your neural pathways and translates them directly into the game. No more clunky haptic suits. This is the real deal. I raised an eyebrow. 100% sync, that sounds invasive and probably nauseating. Nah, they've perfected the equilibrium dampeners. The point is, it's not just a game. It's an experience. The premise is simple. You log in, and the system swaps your consciousness with another player. You get to live in their shoes for a session. It's a social experiment on empathy, or something. Corporate buzzwords. You know. But the tech is insane. I was skeptical, but a sliver of curiosity wedged its way through my cynicism. I lived my life through avatars, digital puppets I controlled from a distance. The idea of becoming one, even for a little while, was both terrifying and undeniably intriguing. Why me, I asked. Don't you have 100 other friends who'd jump at this? Because you're the perfect test subject, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. You spend more time online than in the real world. Who better to give feedback on blurring the line between the two? Besides, I need a partner for the initial sync test, and you're the only person I trust not to do anything weird. He winked. The session is scheduled for tomorrow. We go to the campus lab. They hook us up, and we dive in. It'll just be a few hours. What do you say? I looked around my room at the posters for fantasy worlds, the stacks of sci-fi novels, the glowing screens that were my windows to existences more interesting than my own. I was a professional escapist. This was just another escape. Wasn't it a more advanced one? Fine, I mumbled, but if I throw up in my own brain, I'm blaming you. Nolan's grin widened. Awesome, you won't regret this. The next day, we were in a sterile white lab on campus, run by a couple of Neurosoft technicians who looked barely older than us. They had me lie down on a comfortable reclining chair, the kind you'd find in a dentist's office from the future. Okay, Kai, one of the techs said, her voice calm and professional. We're going to place the sync circlet on your head. You'll feel a slight cooling sensation, then nothing at all. The system will guide you through the avatar selection process in a pre-sync environment. I glanced over at Nolan in the chair next to mine. He gave me a thumbs up. The circlet was placed on my head. A cold feeling spread across my temples, and then my vision dissolved into a soft, white light. A menu materialized in front of me, floating in the void. Welcome to Reality Swap Beta. Please select your preferred avatar profile. A selection of generic male avatars appeared. They all looked like they'd been pulled from a stock photo website for a cologne ad. I scrolled through them, unimpressed. Then I saw a small toggle at the bottom. Filter male. A mischievous thought sparked in my mind. Nolan was always teasing me about being single, about how I needed to talk to girls. He was probably expecting me to pick some stoic warrior-type avatar. The thought of him logging in to find himself face-to-face with a female version of me was too funny to pass up. It was just a game. After all, a digital prank. I flicked the toggle. The male avatars vanished, replaced by a row of female ones. I scrolled through them quickly, not really paying attention, until one caught my eye. She didn't look like the typical hyper-stylized game character. She looked normal, soft, kind features, dark hair that fell in gentle waves past her shoulders, and large, expressive brown eyes. The name below the portrait read, Lyra. Without a second thought, I selected her. Avatar profile Lyra selected. Are you sure warning cross-gender sync may produce unexpected psychological feedback? I snorted. Unexpected psychological feedback? Sounded like marketing nonsense. I hit confirm. The white void around me pulsed. Preparing immersion sync, establishing neural link, sync in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The world didn't just appear. It crashed into me. It wasn't like putting on a headset and seeing a screen. It was like being born. One moment there was nothing. The next there was everything. The feeling of soft cotton sheets against my skin. The gentle weight of a blanket over my legs. The scent of lavender and something sweet, like vanilla, filling the air. A long strand of hair tickled my cheek, and I instinctively tried to brush it away, but my hand felt impossibly small and delicate. My eyes fluttered open. I was staring at a white ceiling. I took a breath, and the sensation was staggering. My lungs felt smaller, my chest rising in a way that was completely alien. There was a subtle, unfamiliar weight there, a gentle pressure that shifted as I breathed. I sat up, and the world tilted. A wave of dizziness washed over me. The blanket slid down, pooling around a waist that was far too narrow to be mine. I was wearing a simple tank top and a pair of soft cotton shorts. My skin was smooth, flawless, and pale. I looked down at my hands. They were slender, with long fingers and neatly trimmed nails. This wasn't an avatar. An avatar is a costume. This was a body. My heart started to pound, a frantic hummingbird rhythm in my chest. The sound of my own voice when I tried to speak was the final, terrifying piece of the puzzle. A soft, melodic sound escaped my lips. Not the low mumble I was used to. What is this? Then, a line of text materialized in my vision, glowing with a soft cyan light, just as the technician said it would. It wasn't a welcome screen, it was a status update. Sync complete. Control link established with player ID Nolan. My blood ran cold. Control link. Nolan wasn't my partner in the game. He wasn't logged in as another player somewhere else. The system hadn't just put me in Lyra's body, it had put Nolan in mine. And if this body I was in felt this real, the heartbeat, the breathing, the silky feeling of hair against my neck, then it wasn't a digital creation, it was a real body, somewhere. A girl named Lyra was now a passenger in her own skin, while I, Kai, was at the controls. The hook from the promo video flashed in my mind, twisted into a horrifying new shape. You're telling me the person controlling my body is a guy my best friend. My breath hitched and a wave of pure, undiluted panic washed over me. This wasn't a game. This was a nightmare. The panic came in waves, each one more powerful than the last. Or rather, her breathing became shallow and rapid. I scrambled out of the bed, my legs shaky and uncoordinated. They felt too long and too slender, the center of gravity all wrong. I stumbled, catching myself on a small wooden desk. The room was a typical college dorm room, but neater than mine. Books on psychology and literature were stacked neatly on a shelf. A laptop sat closed on the desk next to a potted succulent. Sunlight streamed through a large window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. It was all achingly, terrifyingly real. I had to get out. I had to find a log-out button, an escape hatch, something. I closed my eyes, searching for a mental menu, a command prompt. anything. Nothing. There was only the sensation of my own frantic pulse and the smooth, cool surface of the desk under my fingertips. "Help," I whispered, and Lyra's soft voice answered, "Support, system command exit, end session." A calm, synthesized female voice echoed, not in the room but directly inside my head. "Session locked. Experiment ongoing. For assistance, please refer to your in-world guide." Locked, my stomach twisted into a knot. I wasn't a player. I was a prisoner. My eyes darted around the room, desperate for an answer, and landed on a full-length mirror hanging on the back of the closet door. I took a hesitant step toward it, then another, drawn by a morbid curiosity that momentarily overpowered my fear. The girl in the mirror was a stranger. She was maybe 5'6", with a delicate build. Her dark hair was a messy cascade around her shoulders. Her face was heart-shaped, with a small nose and full lips, currently parted in an expression of shock, but it was her eyes that held me captive. They were large and brown, framed by thick lashes, and right now, they were wide with my own terror. Seeing my panic reflected in a face that wasn't mine was a profoundly disorienting experience. I raised a hand, and the girl in the mirror mimicked the gesture. I touched my cheek. Her skin was incredibly soft, like silk. I ran my fingers through her hair. It was fine and smooth, sliding through my grasp. I was so used to my own short, unruly hair. This feeling of a heavy, living curtain around my head was completely alien. My gaze drifted lower. The thin fabric of the tank top clung to the gentle swell of her chest. I could see the subtle rise and fall with each panicked breath. On instinct, I crossed my arms. A gesture of self-preservation that felt both natural and bizarre. The sensation of my own arms pressing against that soft flesh sent a confusing jolt through my nervous system. It was a phantom limb sensation, except the phantom was my entire former body. I was wearing a pair of simple gray cotton shorts that ended high on my thighs. My legs were long, toned, and completely smooth. I'd never given much thought to my own body before. It was just the vehicle that carried my brain from my bed to my computer. But this body demanded attention. Every nerve ending felt alive and sensitive. A slight breeze from the open window gave me goosebumps, and I could feel the fine hairs on my arms stand on end. This was Lyra, a real person, and I was wearing her like a suit. A knock on the door shattered my trance. "Lyra, you awake in there?" I froze. I knew that voice. It was Nolan's. But it wasn't his real voice. It was deeper, smoother, the kind of voice an actor gets paid to have. The in-world guide. The AI had said, "Of course." "Go away," I squeaked, the voice coming out higher than I intended. The door opened anyway. Standing in the doorway was an avatar, but like Lyra's body, he looked unnervingly real. He was tall, with broad shoulders, tousled blonde hair, and a square jaw. He was the idealized, handsome hero I'd scrolled past on the avatar selection screen. He was Nolan, or at least, he was the digital puppet Nolan was controlling. "Whoa, easy there," he said, a charming, easygoing smile on his face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I pointed a trembling finger at him. "You did this? What the hell is going on, Nolan? This isn't a game. This body, it's real." His smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion, then dawning realization. "Wait, Kai, is that you? I thought I was linked with some girl named Lyra." "I am in Lyra's body." "You idiot," I yelled, my voice cracking with hysteria. I picked her as a joke. I didn't know it was a body-snatching machine. "Where is my body? What have you done with it?" Nolan held up his hands placatingly, stepping into the room. Okay, calm down. Your body is fine. It's back in the lab, lying in the chair right next to this one. We're both just controlling them remotely. It's just wires and neural signals. Man, like a really advanced drone." A drone? I gestured wildly at myself. Does a drone feel like this? Does a drone have a heartbeat that feels like it's going to explode out of its chest? I can feel everything. Nolan, everything. He took a step closer, his expression softening with something that looked like pity. I know it's a lot to take in. The sync is more powerful than they advertised. But you have to breathe. Kai, just breathe. He reached out, probably intending to put a hand on my shoulder to comfort me, but in my panicked state, I stumbled backward, tripping over my own unfamiliar feet. I flailed, and he lunged forward to catch me. His hand wrapped around my arm. The contact was like an electric shock. It wasn't the blunt, disconnected feeling of a haptic glove. It was the warmth of his fingers, the firm pressure against my skin, a current of energy that shot straight up my arm and exploded in my chest. My breath hitched. My entire body went rigid. Goosebumps erupted across my skin, a purely involuntary physiological reaction. It was the most intense physical sensation I had ever felt. I ripped my arm away as if I'd been burned, scrambling back until my back hit the wall. I slid down to the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees, trying to make myself as small as possible. Nolan stared at his hand, then at me, his eyes wide with surprise. "Whoa," he whispered. You felt that, didn't you, like, for real?" I couldn't answer. I just stared at him, my mind a maelstrom of fear, violation, and a terrifying, bewildering new emotion I couldn't even name. The line between Kai and Lyra, between my mind and this body, had just been irrevocably blurred, and the person holding the eraser was my best friend. The next few hours or days, it was impossible to tell, were a blur of confusion and forced adaptation. Nolan, in his role as my guide, explained the situation with a detached calm that only infuriated me more. "The experiment's duration is set for 1 real-world day," he explained, keeping a safe distance. "But there's a time dilation effect in the simulation. For every hour that passes out there, 24 hours pass in here, so we're looking at about a month. Game time." "A month," I shrieked, my voice echoing in the small room. "I can't stay like this for a month. I'll go insane." "It's a psychological endurance test," he said, reciting what was clearly a company line. "They want to see how subjects adapt to new identities over a prolonged period. The AI monitors our vitals and mental states. If things get critical, they'll pull us out." He tried for a reassuring smile. "Look, let's just try to make the best of it. It's like the ultimate RPG, rightful immersion." His attempts to frame this as a game felt like a slap in the face. This wasn't an RPG. I hadn't chosen this quest. My protests were useless. The AI was implacable. The session was locked. My only choice was to endure. The simulation, it turned out, was a meticulously crafted virtual university campus. We were students. The AI, which Nolan called the system, began issuing directives to maintain the integrity of the experiment. The first one appeared as a calm, floating notification in my vision. "Daily objective: maintain baseline femininity protocols to ensure psychological stability. Please select an appropriate outfit for the day's activities." A section of my closet door glowed. I opened it and my jaw dropped. It was filled with clothes I couldn't even begin to comprehend. Skirts of all lengths and colors, blouses made of silk and lace, dresses, sweaters, and an entire universe of shoes, most of which had some form of heel. "You have got to be kidding me," I muttered. "Just pick something," Nolan called from the hallway. "We have to go to the campus orientation." Reluctantly, I started to browse. My fingers brushed against different fabrics. And again, the sensitivity of this body was overwhelming. The rough texture of denim, the slippery coolness of satin, the soft fuzz of a cashmere sweater. It was a sensory overload. I had spent my entire life in jeans and hoodies, clothes chosen for comfort and invisibility. These clothes were statements. They were designed to be seen, to be felt. My eyes landed on an outfit hanging on a hook, almost as if it had been pre-selected. It was a short black pleated skirt, a simple white crop top, and a pair of white sneakers with thick soles that gave them a slight platform. It looked manageable, less intimidating than the dresses and heels, and it came with a pair of black stockings that went all the way up to the mid-thigh. The process of getting dressed was a humbling, mortifying ordeal. The bra was a complex piece of engineering I fumbled with for 10 minutes, my fingers feeling clumsy and useless when I finally managed to hook it. The feeling was weird, a constant, snug pressure, a reminder of the body I was in. The crop top left a sliver of my midriff exposed, and I felt a blush creep up my neck. But the stockings were the strangest part. I sat on the edge of the bed and rolled one on. The smooth, elastic fabric slid up my leg, a cool, compressive sensation that was surprisingly pleasant. It clung to my skin, creating a stark, visual line between the pale flesh of my upper thigh and the sheer black covering the rest of my leg. When I stood up, the skirt swished around me, a light, airy feeling I'd never experienced. The slight breeze from the window now felt like a cool caress against the exposed skin of my thighs. I felt incredibly, ridiculously exposed. When I finally emerged from the room, Nolan was leaning against the opposite wall. He looked me up and down, and his composed guide persona cracked for a moment. A genuine, surprised whistle escaped his lips. "Wow, Lyra, you clean up nice?" Heat flooded my cheeks. It wasn't the kind of embarrassment you feel when a friend makes fun of you. It was a deeper, more physical reaction. My skin tingled, and my stomach did a little flip. The compliment landed on Lyra's ears and was processed by Lyra's body, and my brain, the unwilling pilot, was dragged along for the ride. "Shut up," I muttered, pulling at the hem of the skirt. "Let's just get this over with." Walking was a new challenge. My gait was all wrong. I was used to a long, heavy stride. This body wanted to move differently, with shorter steps, a slight sway in the hips to maintain balance. It felt unnatural, like I was trying to impersonate someone, which, I suppose, I was. The campus was bustling with other avatars, all of them as lifelike as Nolan. They laughed and chatted, moving with a natural grace that I utterly lacked. I felt every eye on me. Was my walk weird? Was my skirt too short? Was it obvious I was a fraud? Each glance felt like an accusation. I found myself walking slightly behind Nolan, using his larger frame as a shield. It was a cowardly, instinctual act that I hated, but I couldn't stop myself. The world felt too big, too bright, and I felt too small and visible within it. This body felt fragile, and the clothes, which were designed to be attractive, only made me feel more vulnerable. We sat through an orientation lecture in a massive virtual auditorium. I didn't hear a word of it. I was too consumed by the minutiae of my new existence. The way I had to sit to keep my skirt from riding up, the way my long hair kept falling into my face, the constant low-level hum of anxiety in my chest. At one point, I shivered, a reaction to the auditorium's air conditioning on my bare arms and legs. Before I could even process it, Nolan was shrugging off the light jacket his avatar was wearing and draping it over my shoulders. "You looked cold," he said simply, turning his attention back to the stage. The jacket was warm and smelled faintly of something clean, like sandalwood. I clutched it around me, the simple chivalrous gesture sending another confusing tremor through me. My own mind, Kai's mind, was screaming that this was Nolan, my goofy, annoying best friend, but Lyra's body responded with a flush of warmth that had nothing to do with the jacket. It felt protected, cared for. And then, for the first time, a new thought entered my head, one that didn't feel like my own. It was quiet, a whisper beneath the roar of my panic. "He's just trying to help." The thought was so foreign, so gentle, that it startled me. It wasn't my cynical, defensive inner monologue. It was calm. It was feminine. A chill, colder than any air conditioner, ran down my spine. It was the horrifying realization that I wasn't alone in this body. The real Lyra was in here somewhere, buried deep beneath my consciousness. And the longer I was here, the more this body and this world were starting to change me, chipping away at the person I thought I was. The daily tasks weren't just about clothes. They were about rewriting my very code. The first week or the first day, in real-world time, crawled by in a haze of awkwardness and anxiety. I learned to navigate the world as Lyra through a series of clumsy trials and embarrassing errors. I learned how to walk without my thighs chafing, how to sit without flashing everyone, and how to order a coffee without my voice cracking from the effort of trying to sound natural. The system's daily femininity tasks became a source of both dread and morbid fascination. They weren't just about clothes. One day, the objective was to successfully apply a basic makeup look. I spent an hour in front of the mirror with an array of brushes and powders I didn't understand, ending up with a smudged, clownish face that made me want to cry from frustration. Nolan found me like that, sitting on the bathroom floor, my face a mess of black streaks. He didn't laugh. He just quietly handed me a makeup wipe and then sat with me while the system's AI tutorial patiently guided me through the steps on a floating screen. The feeling of his calm presence was, to my disgust, incredibly grounding. Another task was to attend a dance class and achieve a passing score. The class was some kind of fluid, graceful contemporary dance. My attempts to mimic the instructor were stiff and robotic. I felt like a puppet with tangled strings. But as the music played, Lyra's body seemed to have its own ideas. A muscle memory I didn't possess guided my limbs. My movements became a little smoother, my hips swaying with a rhythm that wasn't mine. I managed a passing score, but I felt more like a spectator in my own body than a participant. It was during that dance class that I heard her voice again, clearer this time. Don't fight it so much. Let the music move you. The voice was gentle, melodic, and undeniably female. It wasn't the system AI. It was organic, laced with a faint echo of Lyra's own spoken voice. Who's there, I thought, my mind racing as my body continued to sway. You know who I am, the voice replied, a hint of sadness in its tone. I'm the one you've locked in the basement. Lyra. She was conscious, a passenger in her own mind, watching me pilot her body like a clumsy thief. The realization should have terrified me, and it did, but it also brought a strange sense of relief. I wasn't just going crazy. The feminine impulses, the weird emotional reactions, the muscle memory, it wasn't just the simulation messing with my head. It was her influence, bleeding through the cracks in my control. What is this place? What's happening? I asked her, my thoughts a frantic plea. I don't know, she whispered back. 1 minute, I was lying down for a university experiment. The next, you were here, and I was listening, watching. There was a pause. You have to be careful. This system, it learns, it adapts. It wants us to sync, to become one. It thinks that will create stability, but I don't want to disappear. And I don't think you do either. Her warning hung in the air, a chilling prophecy, the adaptive sync. She called it a feature designed to prevent the mental schism of a mind in the wrong body. But its method wasn't to reinforce my identity. It was to erode it, blending it with the body's natural state until the conflict ceased to exist, until Kai and Lyra merged into something new. This new knowledge changed everything. Every feminine reaction I had was no longer just a weird glitch. It was a sign of her, of Lyra, her personality seeping into mine. When Nolan told a stupid joke and I let out a small, genuine giggle instead of my usual sarcastic grunt, I felt a jolt of panic. Was that me or was that her? When I was picking out an outfit and found my hand naturally gravitating towards a soft, flowing sundress instead of the jeans I was looking for, I had to physically stop myself. This isn't what I would wear. This is what she would wear. The conflict was constant, a quiet war being waged in the battlefield of my mind. The turning point came during the second week. I was walking across the campus quad, still feeling self-conscious in a pair of skinny jeans and a cute sweater that felt more like a costume than clothes. A group of loud, boisterous male avatars were tossing a football around. One of them made a bad throw, and the ball came spiraling directly towards my head. I froze, my reflexes too slow. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for impact. But it never came. I opened my eyes to see Nolan standing in front of me, one hand outstretched, the football now nestled securely in his palm. He hadn't even broken a sweat. Hey, watch it, he yelled at the guys, his voice hard. They mumbled an apology and jogged off. He turned back to me, his expression softening. You okay? I could only nod, my heart hammering against my ribs. My gaze was fixed on his face, the way his brow was furrowed with concern. You have to be more aware of your surroundings, he said, his voice gentle now. This place is mostly safe. But you're smaller now. You can't just barrel through things like you used to. He wasn't scolding me. He was worried. And the sincerity of it struck a chord deep inside me. In my old life, I was the one who was supposed to be strong, to be tough. I was a guy. I looked after myself. But here, in this smaller, more delicate frame, his protection felt necessary. It felt good. A warm, pleasant feeling spread through my chest. A sense of security that was as addictive as it was terrifying. See, Lyra's voice whispered in my mind, "It feels nice to be taken care of, doesn't it?" No, I thought back, a little too forcefully. I can take care of myself. But the protest felt hollow. The adaptive sync wasn't just a background process anymore. It was actively using my experiences, my emotions, to rewrite my core programming. It had found a weakness, my fear and vulnerability in this new form, and it was exploiting it. Using Nolan's kindness as the catalyst, it was teaching me that being Lyra, being soft and protected, was easier, it was safer. That night, I looked in the mirror after my shower, a towel wrapped around my body. I stared at Lyra's reflection for a long time. For the first time, I didn't just see a stranger, I saw the girl whose body I was borrowing, the girl whose instincts were slowly becoming my own. I saw the fear in her eyes, but underneath it, something else was starting to grow, acceptance. And that scared me more than anything. The days bled into weeks. The simulation's accelerated time had a disorienting effect on my memory. My life as Kai, my messy dorm room, the feel of my worn-out keyboard, the sound of my own deep voice started to feel like a distant dream, the details fading like an old photograph. The world of reality swap, with its perpetually sunny skies and manicured lawns, was becoming my reality. My performance as Lyra improved. The awkwardness that had defined my first few days was replaced by a hesitant grace. I learned to walk in a way that felt natural for this body, the gentle sway of my hips no longer a conscious effort but an ingrained motion. I could apply eyeliner with a steady hand. My voice settled into Lyra's natural cadence and pitch, the effort to sound feminine disappearing entirely because it was simply the only voice I had. Nolan remained my constant companion. He seemed to have forgotten the initial shock of our situation, treating me, for all intents and purposes, as Lyra. He walked with me to classes, ate with me in the virtual cafeteria, and helped me with the system's increasingly complex tasks. We fell into a comfortable rhythm, a friendship that was both entirely new and hauntingly familiar. But the dynamic had shifted. He was no longer just my goofy best friend. He was protective, gentle, and unfailingly kind. He'd pull my chair out for me, or notice when I was struggling to reach something on a high shelf and get it for me without a word. Each small gesture chipped away at my defenses. Kai, the self-sufficient introvert, would have been annoyed by the coddling, but the person I was becoming, this hybrid of Kai and Lyra, found it comforting. The inner conflict raged on. Lyra's voice was a constant presence now, sometimes a guide, sometimes a critic. "You should wear the blue dress today. It brings out your eyes," she'd suggest as I stood before the closet. "Don't slouch. It's not very ladylike," she'd chide when I was sitting in class. Sometimes, her thoughts and my own would merge so seamlessly I couldn't tell them apart. I'd catch myself smiling at a flower or humming a tune I didn't know, and a cold dread would wash over me. Who just did that? Me or her? The most disorienting moments were the physiological ones. One afternoon, we were studying in the virtual library. Nolan was explaining a complex coding concept to me, leaning in close so I could see his screen. I could smell the faint, pleasant scent of his avatar's cologne. His arm brushed against mine, and the same electric jolt from our first day shot through me. But this time it was followed by a pleasant, warm tingle. I felt a blush spread across my cheeks, a completely involuntary reaction. He noticed. He paused, looking at me, a soft, curious expression on his handsome face. "You okay? Your face is all red." "I'm fine," I mumbled, turning away and pretending to be intensely interested in a book. But my heart was racing. It wasn't a panicked rhythm anymore. It was a flutter. "He's very charming, isn't he?" Lyra's voice mused in my head, sounding dreamy. "He's Nolan," I shot back, my thoughts a jumbled mess. "He eats pizza with his mouth open and leaves his socks on the floor." "Not this Nolan," she replied gently. "This Nolan is a gentleman." She was right. The Nolan in this world was an idealized version, a fantasy, and that fantasy was becoming dangerously appealing. The system seemed to be encouraging it. Our daily tasks started to involve more social interaction, often pairing the two of us together. Attend the formal university gala with a partner, perform a duet at the campus open mic night. Each task pushed us closer, forcing a level of intimacy that blurred the lines of our real-world friendship. The night of the gala was a milestone. The task was to select an appropriate formal gown and accessories. I spent hours trying on dresses, my own opinions warring with Lara's more refined taste. We finally settled on a deep emerald green gown. It was simple but elegant, with thin spaghetti straps and a soft, flowing skirt that shimmered when I moved. It clung to my waist and chest in a way that was both daring and beautiful. The system guided me through an elegant hairstyle, sweeping my long hair up, leaving a few tendrils to frame my face. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see Kai in a costume. I didn't even see a stranger. I saw Lyra, and for the first time, I thought she was beautiful. Nolan was waiting for me at the bottom of the dorm stairs. His avatar was dressed in a sharp black tuxedo. He looked like he'd stepped out of a movie when he saw me. His jaw literally dropped. He was speechless for a moment, his eyes scanning me from head to toe. Lyra, he stammered. You look incredible, absolutely stunning. The compliment landed with the force of a physical blow. The warmth that flooded my body was overwhelming. It wasn't just in my cheeks. It was a deep, radiant heat that spread through my entire chest. My hands felt clammy. Thank you, Lyra's voice whispered, and my lips moved to form the words, You don't look so bad yourself. The voice that came out was light and flirtatious, a tone I had never used in my life. I felt a surge of panic, as if I'd been possessed, but the feeling was quickly subsumed by the pleasant glow of his admiration. He offered me his arm. After a moment's hesitation, I took it. His arm was solid and warm under my hand. As we walked toward the grand hall where the gala was being held, I leaned into him just a little, the gesture feeling frighteningly natural. The lines weren't just blurring anymore. They were dissolving. The third month in the simulation, a mere 12 hours in the real world, was when things truly began to unravel. The memories of my old life were now like fragments of a story I'd read long ago. I knew, academically, that I was a 21-year-old guy named Kai. I knew I had a messy room and a powerful gaming PC, but I couldn't conjure the feeling of it anymore. I couldn't remember the specific texture of my favorite hoodie. I couldn't recall the sound of my father's voice on the phone. When I tried to picture my own face, all I could see in my mind's eye was Lara's, her soft features, her dark eyes, her gentle smile. My own reflection had become a ghost. The war in my head had quieted down. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a negotiation, a slow, inexorable merger. Kai's cynicism and introversion were tempered by Lyra's gentle nature and social grace. Lyra's anxieties were soothed by Kai's logical problem-solving. We were becoming a single entity, a composite personality inhabiting one body. The pronouns in my own head started to shift. Sometimes I thought of myself as I, sometimes as we. The system noted the change with satisfaction. The daily tasks became less like orders and more like suggestions. The AI's voice became less frequent. The adaptive sync was working perfectly. From Neurosoft's perspective, the experiment was a resounding success. The subject was stabilizing. But I felt like I was dying, or more accurately, the person I used to be was dying, and I was a helpless bystander at his funeral. Nolan and I were inseparable. Our relationship had evolved into something I didn't have a name for. It was more than friendship, but it wasn't quite romance. It was a deep, profound intimacy born of our shared, bizarre circumstances. He was the only other person who knew the truth, the only anchor I had to my former self, even as he treated me as someone new. One evening, he took me to a place on campus I'd never seen before, a rooftop observatory. The simulation's night sky was a breathtaking spectacle. A velvet black canvas splattered with more stars than you could ever see in a real city. We stood by the railing, looking out over the glittering lights of the virtual campus. It's beautiful, I said. My voice a soft whisper. The words were mine. The appreciation genuine. Not as beautiful as the view from here, Nolan said quietly. I turned to look at him. He wasn't looking at the sky. He was looking at me. His expression was serious, vulnerable, stripped of the easygoing charm he usually wore. Lyra, he began, his voice low and earnest. I know this whole situation is insane. And I know I'm just an avatar, and you're you. But the last few months, getting to know you, it's been the most real thing in my life. My breath caught in my throat. I knew where this was going. A part of me, the old Kai, screamed in protest, "This is Nolan, your friend. This is a game. It's not real." But another part of me, the part that was Lyra, leaned in, eager to hear the words. "He's going to say it," Lyra's voice whispered in our shared mind, full of hope and anticipation. I think I'm falling for you," Nolan said, his gaze unwavering. "And I know it's crazy. We're not even in our real bodies. I don't even know what you really look like. But I don't care. I've fallen for the person you are. Kind, and funny, and stronger than you think. I've fallen in love with you, Lyra." The words hung in the cool night air, my mind fractured. Panic, pure, unadulterated panic from the last vestiges of Kai. This was the ultimate line, the point of no return. Accepting this meant accepting this identity, this body, this life. It meant letting Kai die completely. Hope, a radiant, overwhelming hope from Lyra. This was what she wanted, to be seen, to be loved. He wasn't talking to the intruder in her body, he was talking to her. And in the middle was me, the hybrid, torn apart by the conflicting emotions. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. I didn't know who they were for. "Don't do it," Kai's fading consciousness begged. "Don't let him. We have to get out of here. We have to go back." "But it feels so right," Lyra pleaded. "He sees us. He loves us. Isn't this what we want?" Nolan saw the tears welling in my eyes and his face fell. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I shouldn't have. I've made you uncomfortable. I'm an idiot. Just forget I said anything." He started to turn away, but my hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. The gesture was instinctual, a desperate act from a mind at war with itself. "No," I said, my voice trembling. "Don't go." He turned back, his eyes searching my face. The conflict must have been written all over it, the fear, the longing, the confusion. Slowly, he raised a hand and gently cupped my cheek. His thumb brushed away a tear. The touch was feather light, but it sent a shockwave through my system. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. I shook my head, unable to form a coherent thought. All I knew was that I didn't want him to leave. I didn't want to be alone with the war in my head, with him. The conflict seemed to quiet, with him. I almost felt whole. My own body, Lyra's body, made the decision for me. I leaned in, closing the distance between us, rising on my toes just slightly. The last coherent thought that shot through my mind was a scream from the dying part of me. "No, no, no, this is wrong." Then our lips met. The kiss wasn't what I expected. There was no lightning bolt, no symphony. It was just soft and warm, and it felt, in a way that defied all logic and reason, completely and utterly right. His lips were gentle against mine. His hand moved from my cheek to the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in the soft strands of my hair. My own hands, acting on an impulse I no longer questioned, came up to rest on his chest. I could feel the simulated thrum of his heartbeat through the fabric of his tuxedo. My mind, which had been a raging battlefield just moments before, went completely silent. The voices of Kai and Lyra both faded away. There was only the sensation of the kiss, the feeling of being held, the overwhelming sense of belonging. My body relaxed into his embrace, melting against him as if it were made to fit there. It was a moment of perfect, terrifying peace. The adaptive sync had won. The conflict was over. In that moment, I wasn't Kai trapped in Lyra's body, or Lyra with a stranger in her head. I was just, me, a new person, born of the fusion of two others, in love with the man standing in front of me. This was my reality now, and it was beautiful. But then he pulled back. He broke the kiss gently, resting his forehead against mine. He was smiling, a look of pure, unadulterated happiness on his face. "Lyra," he breathed, his voice thick with emotion. And just like that, the spell was broken. The name Lyra was a key, unlocking the prison I had built around my old self. The quiet battlefield in my mind erupted once more, But this time it wasn't a war. It was a funeral. A tidal wave of grief crashed over me, so powerful it buckled my knees. It was the grief for Kai, for the man I had been, for the life I had lost, for the face I could no longer remember, for the body that was right now at this very second being controlled by the man I had just kissed, a mindless puppet in a lab chair. I had just kissed my best friend while wearing the body of a girl I had effectively kidnapped, and I had enjoyed it. I had felt that it was right. A sob tore itself from my throat, a raw, ragged sound of utter despair. I stumbled back, away from Nolan, my hands flying to my mouth. Whoa, hey, what's wrong? Nolan's smile vanished, replaced by alarm. Did I do something wrong? I'm so sorry. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, the tears coming in a hot, unstoppable flood. They streamed down my cheeks, blurring the perfect, starry sky into a mess of glittering lights. This wasn't happiness, this was erasure. The peace I had felt wasn't acceptance, it was surrender. The system hadn't just made me adapt, it had devoured me. It had taken my identity, my memories, my very sense of self, and fed them to this new persona, this Boss Lyra 2.0. Nolan reached for me, but I flinched away. Don't touch me, I cried, my voice a broken wreck. Lyra, please talk to me, he begged, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. That's not my name, I screamed, the words ripping from my soul. My name is Kai. It felt like a lie. The name felt foreign on my tongue, the assertion hollow. I barely knew who Kai was anymore. He was a ghost, a whisper, and I had just helped to bury him. I sank to the ground, pulling my knees to my chest, the beautiful emerald gown bunching up around me. I cried. I cried for the man I'd lost, for the girl whose body I'd stolen, and for the confused, heartbroken boy in front of me who had fallen in love with a ghost. The breakdown was total and absolute. I was a fractured consciousness, a broken identity, lost in a perfect prison of Neurosoft's making. And as I wept, I felt a faint, sad whisper from Lyra, the last gasp of our strange connection. I'm sorry, she seemed to say. I didn't want this either. Then, everything went red. A massive crimson warning icon filled my vision, blinking with aggressive urgency. System alert, catastrophic psychological divergence detected, subject vital signs, unstable emergency session termination protocol initiated. The world around me began to dissolve. The starry sky fractured like broken glass. The observatory rooftop flickered and vanished, replaced by streaks of digital code. Nolan's face, etched with panic, dematerialized before my eyes. A voice, the real, human voice of one of the technicians, echoed in my head, tinny and distant. We're losing him. The feedback loop is critical. Pull them out. Pull them out now. A violent, tearing sensation ripped through me, as if my consciousness was being forcibly extracted from Lyra's body. It was a pain beyond physical description. Then darkness. And silence. Waking up was like surfacing from the deepest ocean. There was a crushing pressure in my head, a profound disorientation that left me feeling nauseous and weak. The first thing I registered was the smell, not the vanilla and lavender of Lyra's room, but the sharp, sterile scent of antiseptic. The second thing was the weight. My body felt immensely heavy, clumsy, and foreign. My limbs were thick and unwieldy. I tried to lift a hand, and it felt like moving a slab of concrete. When I finally got it into my field of vision, I stared at it. It was a man's hand, large, with calloused fingers and short, clipped nails. My hand. I was back. I was lying on my back, staring at a white ceiling tiled with acoustic panels. A steady rhythmic beeping came from somewhere to my left. I turned my head, the movement stiff and slow. I was in a medical bay. Nolan was in the bed next to mine, still unconscious, with a Neurosoft technician checking his vitals. Another tech, the woman from the day before, rushed to my side. Kai, can you hear me? My name is Dr. Aris. You're at the Neurosoft research facility. You were part of a simulation that had to be terminated. Do you remember? I tried to answer, but my throat was dry. my tongue thick and useless. I managed a week. Croaking nod. "Good," she said, a relieved sigh escaping her lips. "Your vitals are stabilizing. You experienced a severe dissociative episode. We had to flush your system with neural inhibitors to force the disconnect." She helped me sit up. I was wearing a standard-issue medical gown. The rough cotton fabric felt like sandpaper against my skin. Every sensation was wrong. The air was too cold. The light was too harsh. My own body was an ill-fitting suit. I felt a phantom sensation of long hair on my shoulders, the snug pressure of a bra that wasn't there. "Water," I rasped, my voice a low, gravelly sound that vibrated strangely in my chest. It felt completely alien. Dr. Aris handed me a cup, and I drank greedily. After a moment, I found my voice. Where is she?" Dr. Aris looked at me, her expression a mixture of clinical concern and pity. "The other participant, her name is Lyra. She's in the adjacent recovery room. Her vitals are stable. She appears to be unharmed." A wave of relief so profound it almost made me dizzy washed over me. She was okay. I need to see a mirror," I said. The words urgent. I had to see for myself. I had to confirm that I was back. The Kai was real. Dr. Aris hesitated for a moment, then nodded to an orderly, who helped me out of the bed. My legs were shaky, but they held my weight. They led me to a small, private restroom. I stood before the sink, my heart pounding a frantic, syncopated rhythm. I braced myself, my knuckles white on the edge of the counter, and looked up. Kai stared back at me. My face was pale and drawn. There were dark circles under my eyes. My hair was a short, messy tangle. It was the face I had been trying, and failing, to remember for what felt like an eternity. I was me. It was over. But something was wrong. I leaned closer, my eyes fixed on the reflection. The face was mine, the bone structure, the jawline, the nose. But the eyes were not my own. My eyes had been a simple dark brown. These eyes were different. They were large, expressive, a warm shade of brown flecked with gold. They were soft and soulful. They were Lyra's eyes. I opened my mouth to speak, to say my own name, to reclaim myself. "Kai," I said. The voice that came out was not the low, gravelly rasp from before. It was smoother, softer. It was a tenor. Where mine had been a baritone, it was a strange, impossible fusion of my voice and hers, a melodic sound that was neither masculine nor feminine, but something in between. I stared at the reflection, at the familiar face with the unfamiliar eyes, and listened to the echo of the alien voice that had come from my own throat. The panic I expected to feel never came. The horror, the rejection. It wasn't there. Instead, I felt a strange, quiet calm settle over me. The war was over. The fragments had been put back together, but they had formed a new picture. I had lost Kai, but I hadn't become Lyra. I was something else, something undefined. A small, sad smile touched my lips. Lyra's lips, Kai's lips. It didn't matter. "Perhaps," I whispered, my new voice soft in the quiet room. "It's okay." I turned and walked out of the restroom, leaving the ghost of Kai behind. Dr. Aris looked at me, her mouth slightly agape, clearly taken aback by the change in my voice and demeanor. On a monitor behind her, I saw the output from the EEG that was still connected to my temples. A line of text glowed under my patient ID. "Think status permanent, user identity undefined." The journey was over. I had logged out of the game, but I had never really come home, and maybe, just maybe, I never would.